All right, guys. We're live with Lord of Itza. Some people know as Josh, and Jeff Rosado from the Jeff Rosado channel. You're just saying, your channel's got no name, huh? It's just self titled?
Yeah, just for now.
Nice.
I had no plan or direction with that. It was just kind of spontaneous, and I was like, let's just post random sorcery and see how that works.
Here. I did a switch because the my logo is showing up in your quadrant. It looked kind of weird.
That's all right.
All right, so here we. I'm going to share my screen. What we're going to talk about is the hot breaking news that has everybody in an absolute tizzy and a frenzy with the rules update. So actually, I guess we'll talk. Should we talk about like some of the new cards first, or do you guys want to talk about just the rules update? I guess let's start with the rules update, and then like I think maybe the just the rock is worth talking about, and any of the other like recent reveals. I know you've been doing a bunch of videos on that, Lord of Itza. Um, so let me see. Someone's asking, "Are we live? Are we live? I think we're live."
I hope we're live.
Yeah, we're live.
Yeah. So I pulled up the website from the announcement. This is at the sorcerytcg.com news page. So this was dropped in Discord. I think that's large enough to see now. So to summarize, this is the big one, the deck sizes. So actually, so to set the stage, the game's launching on October 4th, which is, I guess, a little less than four. Actually, it's probably 4 weeks from today, right? Yeah. One, two, three,
Yeah.
four.
Mhm.
Exactly 4 weeks from today. And this they'll be at Spiel Essen. I think Eric's going to be there. Simon, Chase. I don't know about other guys from the team. I think Jesse. They said maybe some others. So they're going to have like that's going to be release day. So they're going to have some events. And they said they wanted to get this rule book update out there so people can start thinking for the next 4 weeks how this is going to impact them. And then once this news dropped, people started going nuts about this. It was kind of pretty polarizing. People were surprised, and I guess we'll get into that in a moment. But I'll just read here. New deck sizes. Our original intent has always been to end up with 60 card spellbook and 40 card atlas site. So currently, what is it? 40-20
40-20.
is the
Mhm.
minimum, right? So this is talking about minimums. You can have larger deck sizes. Most people, I think, operate around the minimum. So their intent was always to go from 40 to 60 on the spell book and 20 to 40, double the size on the Atlas minimum size. Once the card pool grew large enough to support those sizes. So initially they went with, it says here, they went with 40-20 to ensure that players made meaningful deck building choices using the alpha beta card pool. And now that Arthurian Legends is adding another, that's they say another 200 cards. So it's really 220 plus, right? So I guess they rounded 200 cards and plenty of new spaces to explore is the perfect time to expand our decks a bit. However, we believe the overall card pool still isn't large enough for a full shift of 60-40, so we're introducing interim deck sizes of at least 50 spellbook cards and 30 Atlas. So it went from 40-20 to 50-30, but they want to scale it up to 60-40 once there's enough decks in the set to justify that. And then I think it doesn't say it here, but actually, let me go to the Facebook group where I extracted the quote from Eric. So there was big backlash, some on Facebook here in the community group and some in the Discord. And Eric's statement was the game will inevitably get increased power level and increased deck consistency with a greater card pool, so this increased deck size only aims to partly maintain the goal of a high variance game with new and surprising things happening often. The game was designed from the ground up to be unfair and splashy. As soon as I lose to, and then he just jokes, as soon as you lose too many games in a row versus very consistent competitive decks, measures will be taken. So I guess he's openly saying he doesn't want it to be a hyper competitive game, and it's supposed to be very swingy and surprising elements, RNG, I guess, to some extent, and big time splashy effects, game changing effects, which is part of the flavor and fun of the game. Many would argue. So with that, let me drop the screen share, and we'll get your guys' take. So we went from 40-20 to 50-30 as an interim step. What do you think the impact is? What's your initial impression?
Josh, would you like to go first?
Oh, I can. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we got to see what the card pool is in Arthurian Legends. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Because here's the thing: we don't know if there are more cards that search for cards. We don't know if there are more cards that offer draw mechanic. So I think knowing those two things will determine how this really affects things. I mean, going from 20 in your Atlas to 30, that's a 50% increase. That's big, especially when you're talking about the way we build our decks with uniques and elites. That's a big change. But I'm holding off any judgment until I see what's in the full set, because we've already seen one card, the Sealy Court, that has a card draw mechanic, and in fact, a big card draw mechanic. So if there's more of that, I think this could work out just fine, but I think it's going to be very hard to hit the right balance.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Actually, if it wasn't really for that point, I'd have a lot of negatives to say about this. Not saying that there are negatives to making this decision, but I do agree where it really just comes down to what new cards we'll see. Like what you said, that is a significant increase. Honestly, there are some concerns with that right now, because obviously we're playing on a 20 board grid, and when you think about it, when you're competing and contesting the realm, you're competing with sites. So at some point, you're going to lead up to, maybe 5 sites on the top row and then one where your avatar is. Some people leave like the bottom 2 rows open, but let's say, for example, you're trying to cast something with a higher mana cost. You're going to need like those 8 sites to play like something like a Great Old One, because not everyone has cores or Philosopher's Stone access, right? So logically, getting to my point, you can have 10 zones where you have sites, but if we buff it up to 30 and even 40 sites, that means that you're going to have a lot of sites that are just going to be pointless, because once you fill up that grid, you can't play any more sites, which leads to an interesting thing. If they took note of that, maybe we'll see some sites that return other sites back to their hand to replace sites, kind of something like Mirage. What do you guys think about that?
So a mechanic to replace sites, because that could be. I mean, do games typically progress as far as filling the entire realm with sites? Does that actually happen regularly, or?
It can.
Yeah,
but
I mean, again,
I'd say
sometimes you'll leave. Yeah, sometimes you'll leave those bottom sites open. Like, for example, if you're going up against Enchantress, that's actually an advantage, because if they try to animate an aura, as long as you have one of those sites open to the void, their aura is just going to get banished. So that's one advantage strategically. If you just fill those zones up, then of course you're just going to use it for mana, and that's the big thing. We're seeing a lot of higher mana cost cards. Yeah, sure, we haven't seen 8 or anything, but maybe you want to play Sir Lancelot and Questing Beast on the same turn. Maybe you need to accelerate in that mana just to get to that extra threshold. So yeah, like whenever you like, just right now, currently, we even have just like a 20 Atlas deck. So if we play 10 sites, that's 10 sites that we may not get a chance to use. Sure, there's Roots of Yggdrasil, sure, there's Sinkhole, which minimize the number of these sites, but not everyone's going to have access to that. So it's going to be a little interesting when we have 40 cards in our Atlas, and we're going to have a lot of sites that we just can't play.
I want to build on that point, though, Jeff. The thing that we could see is more site destruction.
Yes.
Which is very, I think, controversial. I mean, there's a reason that some games, including the Big Bad, pretty much eliminated anything, the stuff that destroys your mana base was eliminated from a lot of games because people find that very frustrating. So if that's also a potential route to let us get out more sites, I think that's going to be even more controversial.
Yeah. It's interesting, but you almost you kind of need that, and it makes sense to do that in a grid-based game. So that's controversial in Magic, you're saying, like destroying mana, but in a grid-based game, I mean, it's
not really even. They took it out of well, I guess I haven't played recently, but they took that out.
Depends on which format you play, really.
Yeah. But I don't think it's in the
Oh.
current formats. Like the current new sets, I don't think they see a lot of land destruction. So
It's too powerful. If you play in older formats, they literally have a spell that destroys all of the sites or lands in play. I think it's called like Armageddon. It's really broken. But
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
but anyways, yeah, getting to that point where you were saying like there may be land destruction, that would be very interesting. I actually would find it kind of fun then, because if we're having to like actually get a chance to use all the sites in our atlas, that actually could really fix a problem that's currently going on even with 20 sites. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, I just my concern would be if there's enough of it that you can cripple your opponent's deck, it's gonna leave us in certain deck types, right? We're gonna have to run a lot of burn decks, a lot of fast decks, a lot of decks running 2-3 mana stuff, and you won't see those great old ones. And it seems to me like Eric wants those cards to come out. He wants the big flash. So I think it's going to be hard to balance that if that's the route they choose.
Yeah, but to your earlier point, I mean, we've only seen a very, very tiny percentage of what Arthurian Legends actually is. Like, neither of you guys are part of the playtest crew, right? So all three of us are like very much speculating, as are most people on the internet. With they're being reactive based on what we know of core alpha and beta, plus like what, a few dozen. I mean, if you count all the Gen Con revealed cards, plus the spoiler season cards, it's probably been a few dozen. Which is like a fairly small percent of what Arthurian Legends actually is. And you mentioned, Josh, in your video that there's been playtesters like playing this set for really, I think it's been the better part of 2 years, because they actually, like, some of the newcomers might not know, but Eric's Curiosa announced Arthurian Legends in January 2023 and said that set is coming out in 2023. So at that time, they were fairly confident that the set was like pretty far along, probably in art commissioning and maybe to some extent in gameplay design, but they've been testing it for a while. They've had a lot of play testers from the community or part of their organized playtester network that's been hammering out a lot of games, right? So they always from the start had that vision of 60-40 of ramping to that, and they've been testing it out with the full new set. So I think we're kind of like in trust them mode, since I guess they deserve the benefit of the doubt since alpha and beta is so good. So, and it's the same play testers. They've grown the team, but they've had like Rafa was one of the first designers. He's been on the staff since the beginning, pretty much. Of course, Eric himself designs cards. So yeah, still a lot to be seen. So on that, I guess like, so everything we say is speculative and with limited information, so it doesn't have a lot of meaning, honestly. But one of the criticisms that I saw was, or one of the theories was that they increased the deck sizes to kind of neutralize the overpowered cards like roots and some of those like uniques and elites that are super splashy. They wanted to minimize that because it's just simple math. If your deck size is higher, you're not going to discover those uniques and elites as much based on what we know of the current cards, unless there's more like, search, tutoring type cards and, deck cycling type cards. So in the absence of that, that was one of the theories. You neutralize it by growing the deck size. They're like, oh, that's lazy. Why not just introduce new cards that counter those alpha cards? What do you guys think about that? Do you think there's any merit to that, or is that just a function of incomplete information?
Actually,
Yeah,
sorry, I wanted to take this one if I could. So Mike, actually, you remember those like unique counterspell, elite counterspell, like the cards that just weren't in alpha and beta?
Yeah, I should
So this had me thinking, and I guess with Eric's post, it had me kind of, I guess it's confirming it, that yeah, we're probably going to see something like draw or search that improve consistency, because obviously having more cards means that there's a lack of consistency, and that's kind of what a lot of players are upset about. There's also, I guess, talk about like the size of your deck box needing to increase. I don't think that's that important, but getting to my point, I think that we may see something like common sense, where we have something that's a unique rarity that searches for a unique, kind of similar to Highland Princess, maybe, or Assorted Animals, but maybe we'll get more flexibility in those forms of searchers.
What do you think, Josh?
In terms of what, I could see them going with search mechanics, but the worry there is with other games, card games that are established for a long time or that exist for a long time. Once you start getting into cards that search, a lot of decks end up with all those search cards in them. So that becomes a real issue too. So I just don't know, just based on what I'm thinking, I think going for card draw is a better option than a bunch of search cards. Not to say that they shouldn't throw one or two in, maybe to, like Earth has common sense. Well, let's give a common sense to water and air and fire so that there's some equal access there. I think that's okay. But then, I think maybe card draw would be a better idea. Let's do card draw so you get to more of those cards and you have more options to play them. They're in your hand, so you can play them. So that deck just isn't sitting there idle like Jeff's worried about, which I think everyone's worried about. Oh my God, I'm only going to see 10 of my Atlas out of this 30 or 40 card deck. So
yeah, like when I'm playing Sorcery, I like playing all my cards, and that's why I think that my deck has been doing pretty well, because there have been some games where I almost decked out because I drew too many cards. So I love the fact that I was able to draw through my deck and actually like play everything or have the option to. So I don't know, with going up to even 60 cards at the maximum, like, would you not agree to me that ordinaries just seem a little bit more supportive now? Like it's just the rock that came out, which I saw your video on that, and you had a lot of good uh like takes on what that card's influence will be. But I also kind of think that, having the ability to have four copies of something just adds more consistency. I feel like there may be a time where if you just have a deck filled with nothing but ordinaries, and then you have like it's just a rock or even just common sense. I think that decks like those are definitely going to be more popular and definitely see some resurgence.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that those could see, we could definitely see decks that are primarily ordinaries and exceptionals. I think 3 exceptionals is enough that those will be in there. But yeah, we may see decks that run no uniques at all, which would be very interesting. So
well, I mean, but to your point earlier, he wants those cards. The uniques are the big splashy type cards, right? He wants those to be more prevalent, which would imply that they're going to introduce some kind of new mechanisms or resources and tools to make them still relevant, right? I don't think they're going to design
necessarily because he said, "I want the game to be unfair."
Right. Well, so it's hard
way to get to those uniques. And from a competitive standpoint, competitive players are going to build what's competitive. And if that means leaving out uniques, you leave out the uniques.
So, I mean, like we kind of gotten to know Eric's personality from being in the chat for the past few years in Discord, the way he jokes around and stuff. So I think the unfair aspect was a little jokey and like tongue in cheek. I think the splashy, I think he intended literally.
Yeah, but I mean, I know.
What do you mean? How do you define unfair? What's unfair?
Yeah, so I think by unfair, he means, I don't think he means like, you're at a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. I think that it's more of, he wants the game to be able to be twisted quickly in a potentially unfair way because of this killer card, which is fun. That can be fun. Oh my God, I'm losing this game, and then all of a sudden, boom, here's this amazing unique, and now the game's back on.
Yeah, if you want, I mean, it's very obviously they're trying to make the game super flavorful, fun, experiential, and part of like storytelling is the element of the unknown and the surprise and the big splashy stuff, right? So that's like a core design philosophy of the game, I think. So I think there's going to be some way. I don't think we're going to see decks with only ordinaries and exceptionals. I think the uniques are still going to be relevant, and they value those. And there'll be new ones, by the way, too. So maybe he'll introduce more like wild, splashy type stuff. Because that's what makes... He doesn't want the game to be like hyper-tuned and hyper-competitive, where I mean, Jeff's coming up with some wild decks that never lose. So I think like he wants to like make sure that doesn't happen. And if that does happen, he basically said there that he sees that as a problem, and they're gonna make adjustments one way or another, whether it be increasing the deck size or like probably introducing cards that counter things that are out of control, or I don't know. They never talked about like banning cards, or I guess they make some when they went from alpha to beta. Didn't they make some like small design? They did tune some cards.
I think they
They,
Like
clarified.
they rewrote
some of the auras.
Thunderstorm
Yeah, Thunderstorm.
and
That's
like
what I
I
was
think a
thinking of.
few other things.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's a precedent for that.
Basically rewritten completely. Essentially, that text was almost rewritten. If you go to the fact, it basically says something different than what the card says. So
Yeah, Thunderstorm is exactly what I had in mind. Yep. Yeah. So
Yeah, it makes me wonder because at first I thought like they had done this in response to like what you said because the decks were just going to be like very powerful, especially with this upcoming set. But I also kind of saw that they originally intended the whole like 60 card spellbook and 40 card atlas. If that is true, I'm not trying to call them out or anything, but I'm surprised that they didn't like put that up front when we first started the game because I feel like that would have been good to prepare us for that. Another thing they could have done is also like just made a format kind of similar to Commander in Magic the Gathering, where you have like a bigger deck size and then you can
yeah.
just play that in a specific format tournament. But because now that they're just doing this flat out, it will definitely make uniques inconsistent. And it would definitely, I feel like ordinaries would just get a better buff because you're definitely going to fill your deck with a lower curve. That just seems smarter. So I don't know. For us to get like, I mean, honestly, draw power may be a good thing. Maybe not like an ancestral recall or something that draws us three cards with one mana. Like maybe something that's at least fair, but something that's worth the value. I think something like that would be great because I don't know, uniques are already hard enough to draw, and if you have a deck filled with them, sure your deck's going to be powerful, but it's still going to be inconsistent by default. So you have to like adjust to that inconsistency. But because your deck's going to be so much bigger, it's going to make it very challenging to do so.
Yeah, I think they have to introduce cards that are tools to have some way like increase the probability of drawing the uniques and getting those into play. So whether those are tutoring effects or some other maybe creative mechanism we haven't thought of, where you cycle your deck faster, or, you know, like browse where you could look at the top handful of cards of your deck and just bring it to the surface faster, or the card that, let me go to the website again here. The card I was thinking of is the Highland Falconer, you know, that searches for a certain what do you call it, man?
a
I'm
beast.
rusty.
Yeah, searches for a beast.
What do you call a beast? A class type or something? I'm rusty on
Yeah.
the terminology. So maybe there's like certain subsets of uniques, like you could search for a unique relic or a unique whatever, or minion, things like that are introduced. Because I think again, like if you keep it as is, you do dilute it, and that's a problem that would have surfaced quickly in playtests because it's already difficult to pull the uniques, as Jeff was saying.
Yeah. I mean, they could actually, instead of saying elite and unique, they could say search your deck for a 7 mana cost card or a 7 mana cost minion, right? Maybe not keying to unique even. I mean, they have that option to key to mana cost. And if the desire is to get these big flashy cards in, all right, here's a card you can get that searches for a card that costs at least 6 mana. Now, how much does that card cost? I don't know, but that's an option.
Yeah. So, like in the current play state as it stands now, with the limited information we have over Arthurian Legends plus the core alpha beta set, this card, I mean, if you only change the parameter of increasing the deck size, this card basically just got nerfed pretty hard, right? Because it's, first of all, it's hard enough to pull an elite now, harder to pull an elite. And then it's search use case. I guess like calling a beast with airborne with 2 or less, that's strong in certain deck types.
Sacred
but
Scarabs usually.
the fact that it's an elite makes this less useful. Yeah.
Yeah. Bats are another good one to pull. Bats. Yeah.
But you do have new
Oh,
deck
true,
archetypes
true.
too. Like there's these fairy decks, you know, and they're kind of low powered and they have synergistic special abilities. I don't know if they're considered beasts with airborne, but if there's any that we have like
No,
that
they're
as an
fairies.
example.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
they're fairies.
oh,
So,
it's its own.
but
Okay, it's its own class
but we
type.
are seeing multi-type minions. So
Yeah,
the floating guy is a fairy and a mortal. So
and the caravan got a big buff as it stands now, right? So let me go to the Vincent Pompetti page. That's all class types?
yeah, it's all. Yeah.
All elements and minion types. Yeah. So it benefits from the new multi element mechanics too, or resources. That's pretty sweet. It's a fun one. Casting cost of 5, power level 4 is pretty solid, but then it stands to be buffed in many ways. And then I mean the Excalibur is unique, right? So what are the odds of pulling Excalibur? Maybe it's Arthurian Legends. Maybe there's certain ways to go look and search for Excalibur. It's pretty sweet.
Of course, the problem with being all minion types means that he's vulnerable to every type of card that eliminates a minion type. So he's vulnerable to mortality. He's vulnerable to, he's a fire minion, so extinguish. So, he's vulnerable to all that direct removal.
Yeah. I'm getting sucked into chat here. People are talking trash. This guy called me a farming Mike is farming drama. I told him I'm a drama miner and I have a receding hairline because I wear a helmet all day in the caves. So let's see. What's Too Fluent say? Mike is trying to maintain unique card value. Yeah, man. You see the painting in the back? I need that key thera mechanism to be useful. But yeah, the uniques everyone loves the uniques. I mean, like Eric's basically saying, like these uniques, we're gonna make them relevant. Like that's a big core part of the design. So they're not just gonna increase the deck size and basically nerf all rarity types for uniques and elites. There's got to be something coming. So
You know what? I'm gonna add to that. The chat wants drama. I'll give them drama.
all right, let's
I,
hear it.
I would challenge Eric Curiosa if he challenged me right now. Hopefully, I would give him a run for his money and cause him to make the better decisions for the health of his game. Just like what he said. I'm just throwing that out there, though. I'll accept challenges.
You gotta unleash your secret weapon deck. You got to bring that to
Yeah.
SorceryCon, man. Actually, I don't know that deck. Do you think your deck? People don't know what we're talking about, but you have like a deck that's been crushing at the LGS. Does that? So is there a way to? I don't know if you want to talk about that deck. Is there a way to talk about it, like the archetype of what it is, and if it's impacted by this change? Or do you
Yeah,
not
as
want
a
to get
matter of
into that?
fact,
If you don't want to get into it, it's up to you.
I won't. I'll spare people the details. They already know. So, actually, Josh, have you ever heard of a deck called Elemental Throne?
Yeah. Because someone pinged one of my videos about it. So, but
Hmm.
I think someone tried to bring a prototype version of that to the social. I think there were a couple prototype versions of that. I don't think it's the refined version that you're running, but
No, yeah, definitely. There has been like so many changes, and that's because I have just test played it through Oblivion. Like I've just test played it against everything. As soon as a deck tops a tournament, usually someone at my LGS will just like use the deck, and then I'll just go against it. I played almost every matchup that you can think of, and I've won against every single matchup. Not every single matchup I've ever had. I have lost several times, but I've at least beaten everything once, and that just shows like how good it can be in the right hands. I'm not saying that everyone can use it, but anyways, uh, the deck Elemental Throne, while not heavily reliant on the Immortal Throne, it basically uses Elementalists, and ideally, because of its threshold producing capabilities, the deck can just play all these broken, unique cards, and it is just so versatile. Like there's so many combos, there's so many ways to play it, and one of the best ways to play it is with the Immortal Throne because you just gain an absurd amount of card advantage. And sure, even if your opponent gets rid of the Immortal Throne, like a Cave In or Earthquake or something like that, you can still draw cards off of it, and that's just ridiculous. And just from having that much card advantage, and with a deck souped with just uniques, the power is just always there. It just comes down to like proper decision making. So with this new rule change, it will probably decrease the power level for sure, depending on what comes out. See, the Immortal Throne's already hard enough to draw into, and I play Dream Quest as like the best way to try and search it out as quick as I can. And even that comes with its, fair share of difficulties, because obviously your opponent could just lightning bolt your Apprentice Wizard, or destroy it before the Dream Quest goes off. But here's another thing: if my opponent doesn't have the removal, I just get the free search, and that's way worth the risk. And that being said, yeah, if this set or if this new rule changes like the ability of like certain play styles, like I see Roots of Yggdrasil like getting completely nerfed from this because it's going to be harder to draw. Of course, Immortal Throne is going to be hard because it's going to be harder to draw into. And sure, if you do have it, you can draw into good cards, which is great. But again, the consistency is a vital part to playing these powerful decks. And if you're increasing the deck amount and you're decreasing the consistency of a deck, it is going to be difficult. And I guess we just have to see if my deck does get new support in the form of draw and search, then I can't complain, because as long as I'm able to, again, use all the cards that I need to in my strategy, I'm fine. But if my deck gets wrecked because we just have too many cards and no way to get into our powerful strategies, then it's going to be difficult. Did that kind of answer your question, Mike?
Yeah, I think so I think there will be new tools, and I think like there's, like I say, there's going to be ways to make those uniques and elites still relevant. So I think that'll all be mitigated some way. And I think your deck will I don't know, it's yet to be seen how, but I think it will still preserve some of the core fundamentals of like the mechanics of how it works. Because and plus, like, the other thing is, I don't think the game's going to tilt to one extreme or the other, given Eric's explanation that he wants it to be splashy, so you got to be able to get to the splashy cards for that to happen. But a game's not fun if it's pure RNG, that it just becomes like a troll meme game, right? Like it's just like a goofy, like, stupid game. Like, people also like the strategic aspect of it, so it's got to be balanced with that and be able to be tuned to a certain extent where you do have some control and you could like run control archetype decks. But there's always that lurking threat of getting caught off guard or like a surprise you didn't expect, because those are like the experiential moments that are memorable and fun. And that happens like in all games too. Like, I mean, even like Hearthstone or like Magic, any of these games, they could have like a rare combo that like a deck's like specifically designed around a combo that's not all that consistent, but it's still, you can control it enough that it happens frequently enough to justify running a deck of that type. I think like Sorcery needs to strive to find that balance, and they will. And there's been a lot of play testing to ensure that.
The new
So
mulligan rule also didn't help.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
I feel like that made the game a little tougher, and it certainly changed like the meta for a little bit because people had a tougher time with consistency. But I felt like even then it was still okay, because I think that it did add a bit of fairness to it despite that. But again, with more cards, it's just only going to be it's going to be really hard. I definitely would like to see a lot of like interesting card mechanics, but nothing that's like too broken. Like, I don't know, you were saying something about like browse where you can look at like the next seven cards or something. I feel like if I don't know, like maybe if they did that for every element, that might be a little too good because you're just looking through too many cards. So
Yeah.
something like that, I would like to be somewhat controlled. Like, you have to be able to balance out searching for broken cards and like still not being able to warp the game completely. Because even
Yeah.
common sense, being able to search for an ordinary can get competitive.
Um, Talking about what you just mentioned, Jeff, the mulligan, I'm wondering if they're going to roll it back. Are we going to roll back to 6 or maybe 4, instead of the 3? I mean, that's my question. Are we going to go back to what the mulligan was? Or are we going to increase hand size? Especially once we get to 60-40. Are we going to go to 4 cards of each? Or I can't think we'd go to 5, but that would be a way to kind of get some more of that starting up, into your hand. So
Yeah, so they didn't publish like a full new updated rule book, right? It was just like a handful of core changes that they wanted to focus on. Is that right?
well, I mean, it was basically the old rule book with those new sections slotted in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but what you're suggesting here would imply a change they haven't revealed yet.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't think-
Yeah. No, like we just made the change to 3-card mulligan. When was that, Jeff? Was that 3 months ago? Something? I'm terrible.
It was like early summer, something like that.
Okay.
Oh, there is a new rule book. Okay.
Yeah. So I think it would be odd for them to roll back that change, but it would be a way to get some more consistency back with a larger deck.
I hadn't thought of that. That actually would be very interesting. They did make that avatar, so the one where like I forgot what it was called. It was like a brand new avatar. I think it's in the draft kit where you start the game with 4 cards.
Yeah, the Spellslinger. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It would almost be, not saying that I'm opposed to it, but like if they did something where like we could draw more cards at the beginning or just see more cards, I feel like that would definitely be very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a possibility. Again, I don't think we can really speculate on any of that until we see the whole set. But, and also going back to the play testing, they didn't go to 60-40. I think people need to realize that, right?
Yeah.
Which means they were play testing at 60-40, 50-30, and 40-20.
Yep.
And they decided 50-30 is the sweet spot. And I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, and like he said from the very beginning, they always wanted it to be 60-40. So this could have been a work in progress for the past 3+ years. I mean, so they could have been working towards that. Once the alpha set was nailed down, this evolution to an increased deck size could have been in the works for ages. I guess the playtesters would know that. So I'm like, look, let me go through back to this because I want to see, were there any other interesting updates that were I don't know about controversial, but you have multi-element cards, multi-element spells, and
we did get confirmation that the Philosopher's Stone with multi-element is not nearly as good as everyone wanted, but it came out the way we all expected.
Okay.
It's a 1 mana discount. So it does, even if the card has all 4 elements, you're only getting a 1 mana discount. And worse, it counts as if you've cast a spell of each of those elements. So you're going to have to be really careful when you cast your multi-element spell.
Okay. So, I mean, you guys, like, are more in tune with the player community. Was the multi-element, additional multi-element cards, Atlas cards, and, like, spells and minions and things, was that, like, universally well-received? Anyone have any issue with that?
I don't.
People like that?
I think everyone's excited because mixes are probably going to see play. But what do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, totally. I was going to say that it certainly adds another layer, especially in competitive play. It is kind of a little bummer that the Philosopher's Stone isn't like as powerful, especially in this scenario. But that has me wondering, like, if they're not really making the Philosopher's Stone as great as we thought it was going to be, it's like, I don't know. I just have like this feeling that they're kind of pushing away from these powerful cards, and I'm trying to just figure it out and like what's to come, Because I like the multicolored and multi-element spells. I think that that's great, but not being able to get like a full value off of it, or make it worth the inconsistency with the amount of cards that we're getting. I don't know. Like it's a mixed feeling. I'll say that.
Yeah, Zach's making an interesting point here that it makes Philosopher's Stone better with non-multi-element spells. So it has its niche and will hopefully make decks better running less multi-element decks more powerful. So if you're not running decks that are multi-element, it's still good. I don't know. It's an interesting one because it wasn't like it was the community that crowned Philosopher's Stone as the Black Lotus of sorcery. because it was super powerful. I think it was even different, if I remember, in the early playtest era before it was adjusted the first time for alpha. And now there's other stuff evolving that are making it. I don't know. It's still really good, right? But did the company want it to be the Black Lotus of sorcery, or do they want more diversity and maybe they're going to introduce something crazy in Arthurian Legends that trumps it, or who knows? Anything's possible, really.
Well,
But I think does the company even care about collectability and value of secondary market and stuff like that, or they just want a fun game?
no, they
And
because Eric's Magic collection is apparently renowned, so he
yeah,
definitely cares about collectability. I'm not, I don't want to go into the whole investment thing, but like, I think he wants the cards to have value and for there to be a secondary market. Yeah.
we've always assumed that, but the decisions, the way the company operates, in some ways, is almost counter to that. So it's kind of, I don't know. I just think that like sometimes you take a step back and think about the way they behave, some of the choices they made, the way the business executes fundamentally, um, like all the non-conventional ways that they're going about this game with the annual releases, um, uncertainty over print sizing. Now they're going to wave prints. Like, how do you, if you're going to print in waves and keep printing it over the course of a year, is that going to be a large print run size? What would that do to the secondary? I mean, it's non-traditional. I think he experienced. I don't. I guess in some ways, I want to say he's reinvoking the magic aspects of things, definitely artistically with that '90s vibe and the artist selection. But and then like collectability, we thought that was the case, but there's these other like counter forces that are non-traditional or unconventional at best that put that into question to some aspect. So we don't really know. They've never really said what their goals are and like what the direction of this game is. We kind of like get surprised and learn things new all the time, and sometimes it surprises us. And I think that's why this was a bit of a shocker. The increased deck sizes, that was something that came out of left field and surprised people. So who knows? My point is we don't know like a lot about what's going on with sorcery and what's coming next. That's kind of the fun and the risk in it, the fun and the scary factor for those that are heavily invested in it and like it as a collectible and investable, speculative, type of conventional TCG mindset.
No, great points. Great points. I really want to hope that they have everything planned ahead and that something is coming and it's going to change the game for the better.
It seems their priority is fun, and even like the nature of their community engagement, they're embracing like even small time content creators that are like inclusive in like hosting events and make appearances or making an effort in that regard. And they a lot of their content is centered around gameplay, around like community. Like they always talk about community and experience and community run events and this and that, right? That's what they value, their core values. And now this move, Eric stated openly here that it's about the fun, flavor, unpredictability, the play aspect of it, right? It's not talking about collectability or I don't know. They never talk about collectability, right? Like curio is something you can't talk about. It's just something that's self-evident in the set because in alpha the pull rates were so extremely rare, and the curios are extremely rare. So there was intrinsic collectability and value in that because of the scarcity. But with Arthurian Legends, I guess we suspect there's curios. I don't know if did they openly say that? I guess they did.
It's on the box.
Okay, yeah, you're right. It's printed on the box, so we know there's curios. So they're preserving an aspect of collectability. So there are indicators that cut both ways. It's just that it's so non-conventional and bucks so many TCG norms that it's just kind of a wild ride. We don't know. we can't apply like other game market dynamics or anything to that effect in precisely the same way that it might manifest in sorcery because it's pretty different in many ways fundamentally.
Say, Mike,
Mm-hmm.
do you have a like test card of the Holy Grail?
I don't have a test card. I can show it on my screen because, yeah, I don't have a physical copy, but I definitely have a digital. If you search in the community Facebook group,
See, a
they'll
lot
move
of
it up.
people have saw this image on the side of the Arthurian Legends box. So
Yes, the artwork.
I'm hoping that this is what's gonna really like change the dynamic of the game. Because like what you said, yeah, sure, they're having curios, which is I think is gonna be a consistent thing with their products, but it's always good to have that chase card too. Alpha and Beta was a success because there was tons of chase cards. Obviously, it was the first few sets. So with this set, who knows? Maybe the Holy Grail is going to be really good just for this warping format, and hopefully it changes the game. Like I'm really excited to see what this card is going to be.
Yeah, and so to caveat, I posted this on February 10th, 2022. So 2.5 years ago, this was the concept for this card. So it's definitely going to change in some way, almost with certainty. Um, it's kind of so I don't know why they showed this card, honestly, because like they have made statements that Arthurian Legends was always in the plan, you know. So maybe, and I know they like to drop like Easter eggs and clues and hints though. So I think that was like them tipping their hand at like, I mean, remember I speculated very early on in 2022, I think it was, that there'd be an Arthurian Legends set, and it's because of like things like this, right? They drop these Easter eggs in plain sight. Like this card, you sure like Alpha was all over the place. It is very diverse because it creates the fundamental building blocks where you can take the game in all these different directions with further expansion. But my point is like this in February 2022, well before Alpha was released, they're showing clearly an Arthurian Legends themed card that probably wouldn't make sense for Alpha. Like it could be one of those like planting a seed type things that you build on, but not the Holy Grail. Like that would be like putting King Arthur in Alpha or Excalibur or something. It just wouldn't make sense. Like it's got to be like a core element of that set. So I think we should look for more clues. Is what I'm saying for future set themes.
They probably had
Sure.
expected to have Arthurian Legends in 2023. So
No, yeah, well, that too. I mean, this was like 2022, so this was like almost a full year before they announced Arthurian Legends officially. That happened in January 2023. But yeah, it's just interesting that early on they showed this card, given that is probably for the second set, which they, yeah, at that point expected to be at least a year out, maybe a year and a half. I don't know. Maybe they didn't expect like the design aspect of it to change that much, But now I think it's been so long, and Alpha's been out there and played so much, and they tested Arthurian Legends so much that I think there's probably a pretty solid probability that this mechanic could change entirely, or the use case of it. It could just be a curio. Who the hell knows? Might not be a core card.
I've got to think that the Grail will be something we get in a regular unique card, but
Yeah, they wouldn't put it on the box if it was a curio. So
yeah, maybe though we will get a version of it with gold leaf, or I'm really hoping for gold leaf on cards. I don't get it, but that's what I think would be super cool. But
as like the actual printing of it,
yeah, like gold leaf on a Grail, would that not be awesome? Or gold leaf on those pieces that
would be cool.
Beautiful night, that were just done by is Elvira? Yeah.
Yeah, she does like physical gilding, like kind of glued on there. And then I've done some embellished prints with Severin where she used gold leaf, like on the Philo Stone embellished prints we did. The problem with that is it can stick to like we put them in plastic acid-free sleeves, and like sometimes like one of the specks of gold leaf would flake off or stick to the paper and come off. And I think like on artist proofs too, like sometimes Severin and others will put some of those sparkly elements on there. So that's a challenge in even just painting. So like a printing technique that does that would be pretty interesting. But Eric did hint at he's doing something with trying to make Elvira's gilded knights really pop, So it's be a big chase. I think that's going to create value in Arthurian Legends, personally, if you want to talk market.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, I think a lot of people are going to be open on a lot of Arthurian Legends. And my hope is that we'll get a much bigger player base, because I think that's really what the game needs right now. We need a bigger player base. I enjoyed going to the social and the Corson Cup, and I'm looking forward to SorceryCon, but we need a big player base where SorceryCon is a 2,000, 3,000 player event. That's what we need. So,
yeah. So I think Baltimore was like, I don't think it was quite 150, but is maybe on that order of magnitude. I think like SorceryCon should be at least double, if not more, hopefully. I think we've sold at least 250 plus tickets. So that's already like almost a doubling of like the last biggest event that they've had, a community run event. Like you can't count a Gen Con or something that has a built-in audience for all the other attendees there, but sorcery specific community run event, it's doubled the size of the last biggest one. So that's a nice stepping stone, especially for a game that hasn't had any freaking product for the past year, like, or like a way to, and I know like people that sell the product would argue like, oh, you could have bought this the whole time, like on TCG Player or from like the handful of guys on Discord, right? But I'm talking about like LGS adoption, the thing that causes significant growth, not like accessibility of current market. Most people don't go try a new game and only buy on TCG Player, I would say. So, yeah, I think we'll see that growth, but this Arthurian Legend needs to be that big stepping stone. And then next year's SorceryCon hopefully will be another doubling, if not more. That'd be nice. And we'll see more players, yeah, for sure, to your point. Once you have product availability, people will give it a chance.
Yeah. And, I will say, I've been talking to a lot of folks, and they're all getting their beta. So, I think beta is going to be in some stores now, especially those stores that have been running events and trying to support it. So I think that's great, that some beta is going to be out there, because I was a little concerned with where beta prices were going to go once Arthurian Legends hit. So.
Oh, okay. So you think it's important that beta be accessible to people that are just onboarding onto the game with Arthurian Legends?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because, people are still going to use those cards. Arthurian Legends is not big enough, especially with 50-30.
And the beta singles are pretty cheap, right? Like you can get all the non-foil cards you need pretty inexpensively. But yeah, to your point, like you really want people to have that booster box experience. So, if you have to go on TCG Player and charge $250, like pay $250, $300 a box, like most people are like, nah, I got enough alternatives to try, right? That is a threat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Excited to open up Arthurian Legends. Let me just say that, like, I'm super excited just to dive into this set and just explore new frontiers. Getting into SorceryCon, I feel like that can definitely be a difficult time for competitive players, but I love how they're making other events just in case if you wanted to play a draft or you wanted to play in a sealed event, you can do that as well. But for the competitive play, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch, because not only are we getting a new set to experiment with, but this rule change is definitely going to make things interesting. So having two within, like, when is this? It's in November, so
yep.
like it's like what, a little over a month where you have to prepare.
Yeah. And we know how long it took for Roots to become dominant. So whatever being played at SorceryCon, and probably whatever wins SorceryCon, is not what's going to win the next Courtesan Cup, in the spring or early summer of the following year.
Yeah, the timing is challenging. I don't know. Are they having a tournament at? Oh, I guess that side LGS is going to have some kind of gameplay. I don't know how competitive it'll be, like on release day. Maybe like a sealed draft event format, I would think.
No, I think they're getting a whole box to build a deck with, is what they're doing at Spiel.
Yeah, which is more like drafty. It won't be like constructed. Like at SorceryCon, the main event, as you see here, is a sealed event. But we will, to your point, have draft events. The old school guys from Beast of the Bay are going to be teaching people how to play the two-headed dragon format. So it's like a 2 versus 2 type concept. So there's going to be all kinds of different play formats. But in a way, like I was watching, I think Rude or one of those guys was talking about, or maybe it was Kevmel. I don't know. One of the player channels was talking about like what the vibe has been like at the community events and how it's not like super cutthroat competitive. Like people are there to have fun. They're kind of like cordial, and win or lose, they're still happy with the outcome. It's more about the experience and connecting with people. So I don't know that this change it'll make like the constructed or the sealed format more or the constructed format more challenging, because we'll only have like a month of the new cards to explore. But in a way that's kind of cool too, because it won't be fully figured out. It kind of makes the field wide open, and in a way more competitive, more unpredictable, more on theme, therefore, with Eric's vision of you don't know what you're going to get, right, when you sit across the table from somebody.
That definitely sounds like fun because at my LGS, I swear, man, everyone's bringing all the heat. Like there's no
Or
holds barred. Everyone's just playing like very competitive, high level stuff, and it's sometimes it could be exhausting.
the other like interesting wrinkle is, what if someone comes in with a very tuned alpha deck that doesn't even include much or any Arthurian Legends? Like, how would that stand up to the new set that people haven't figured out yet? Maybe it's more optimized. I don't know, but there could be some like wild Arthurian Legends cards that just like make some of the formerly powerful alpha cards just stupid or like way worse, right? So they're gonna have to look into it for a few weeks and put some energy into it if they want to be competitive in that one.
Yeah,
but that's why you got drafts too.
You're gonna have the cards for a month, so you know that's enough time. And you know what you may see is someone does take an old alpha deck and only includes, I don't know, 10 cards, 12 cards that are new, and they know that deck well enough, but those new 12 cards, you know, just make that deck even more powerful, you know, whether it's Fury Road or some version of Roots or, you know, some version of Elemental Throne.
Honestly, I've been waiting for people to play different versions of Elemental Throne. I've only just went up against like one other person, but he played like a more common sense package, which was pretty sweet. I actually thought that was really nice to see. I really enjoy when people get creative. So that's something that Arthurian Legends for sure is going to bring, is more creativity, because everyone's just going to try to figure it out and obviously play with new cards. So there's a couple of cards that have been spoiled so far that I'm really excited to try out.
Yeah. Do you guys want to take a quick look at the cards? I'll pull that up. Let me see if there's anything while we're here on SorceryCon. So we're up to 10 sorcery artists. We don't have I just revealed Sam McKinnon, and he's going to be there as well. So he was the 10th sorcery artist. We'll have Dustin Brossard there, who's one of the top altarists emerging here in Sorcery. And then there might be one or two more artists. I'm still working things out with a couple others. One's got it is going to decide within the next month or so, and another's pretty interested too. So, I mean, 10 plus is pretty insane. That's also about double of what we had at Baltimore. And at Baltimore, it didn't feel sparse, man. A lot of people, 150 people at a venue is a lot. And we had like 5 or 6 artists. It was really, really awesome. So the prospect of double in both regards is really exciting.
All right, that looks like a good time with all those artists and Arthurian Legends on top of that, with multiple different events. Yeah, that's going to be one wild party. I can say that.
So the new cards, like, what are the standouts to you guys? Which ones are you excited about?
You want to go first, Jeff, or you want me to?
Josh, you go first this time.
Okay. For me, and let's switch off. My number one card that I want to try, because I think it's going to be hilarious, is Siege Giant, because I can't wait to throw stuff. You know, so I just think he's going to be funny because he's a stationary blink. And I just think he's going to be absolutely hilarious. On one of my videos I talked about, I'm going to try him with a Kite Archer, because Kite Archer just hasn't seen any play. And I thought, you know, Kite Archer seems to pair really well with this guy, because he can toss the Kite Archer. Kite Archer can do its range thing. And then the Kite Archer gets the free step, and he can step back to where the Giant's at to be thrown again next turn.
That's really fun. Yeah, that's a good one
the
for
artwork
sure.
is pretty hilarious on this one.
Yeah, no,
Just
that's the one I'm looking forward to, that one, because I think it's just going to be great and hilarious. So
the expression of this guy is just incredible. Just like tossing you, making this like very serious face. And then what are these villagers doing? They're just like standing back watching these giants wreak havoc. It's a pretty hilarious card. An exceptional giant takes aim. Once on your turn, Siege Giant might throw a weaker ally here through the year to a nearby location. So, have people talked about like buffing the giant so you can throw larger minions?
that's something you could do, but I don't think there's any. Well, I mean, you can put a flaming sword on him to permanently buff him.
Okay.
What else, Jeff, could you put on him to permanently buff him?
Well, maybe not permanently, but maybe on the same turn. You can use
Yeah.
Overpower or Gigantism to definitely boost its power, and I believe that would count if he uses ability. Sure, it's not permanent, but I mean, even for pushing like a bigger minion on the other side of the board, that could be worth investing.
Yeah, yeah. You could potentially mount something onto something that carries units that's small enough, and then it's a big unit like a great old one's being carried by something that can carry minions, and then toss the smaller minion, because then the great old one would go with it.
So people are
Yeah.
saying the trinket. Let me go to the Seagrave page. How does that work? Is that the Torch Hammer?
Oh
Or
yeah,
does it
Tor's Hammer. Yeah, Tor's Hammer would be a good one. I mean, you have to pay for it
Torch
every time,
Hammer?
but that'd be one way to do it.
Beer
Yeah,
is plus just +1, yeah, so it
yeah,
doesn't move the needle that much.
yeah,
Oh, at the end of your turn, return this to. Oh, okay, you return the relic
yeah.
to its owner's hand,
So
not
you
the
got to
minion.
keep paying for it. That's what the only card I can think of that, like Flaming Sword, you permanently put it on him. He's gonna have
Yeah,
plus. You know.
so it's a Pollock card.
I can certainly I wanted to try and avoid using this card's name for controversy reasons, but you could even use Jihad and you can summon the giant, and I believe it gets charged with it. So
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
essentially use it immediately. So that could be interesting. And I think it buffs it up by one as well. So
Yeah, no,
um that could definitely be I can definitely see that possibly being a thing. Shortens the
+1.
range too, because you can play that really close to your opponent's avatar, and if they try to go away from it, if you summon the giant and then toss something even further closer to their avatar, I think that would be pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie.
no, it's gonna be hilarious. I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is a really fun card.
One of the few cards that I was looking forward to with Arthurian Legends, that I was seeing was Mesmerism. Um, I know that Infiltrate is really popular in the competitive scene right now. So being able to take control of your opponent's minions is sometimes always really good. And Mesmerism can just take control of a minion just by default. We've also seen Love Potion, which can also take control of your opponent's minion. So
Talk
I
about
foresee that being
talking
just
about.
like a ridiculous mechanic.
No, don't. We don't want to see it. I'm so terrified of Love Potion.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have been talking about that. So there seems to be like a lot of synergy going down that path. Um, I I thought it would have been better to make this possibly a unique
Mhm.
rather than an elite, because I feel like it being an elite just adds a little bit more consistency to the strategy.
Yeah, no, I'm deeply afraid of that card. With replication and the scavenging ghoul.
Scavenging Fiend,
Yeah,
yeah.
just all those things make me really afraid of this guy. And it's one of my arguments for the card that everyone raised Cain over, Just a Rock. So
Yeah,
You see
a lot of people went crazy when that card was spoiled. Um, I mean, I personally think there are better cards than Just a Rock, but I think that just a rock may have a little bit more synergy, mainly only just because you can search it with common sense. And sure, you can search for dispel and disenchant, um, but some would argue that those are slightly weaker because the rock banishes, and also you can just play it anywhere. Where dispel and disenchant are kind of a little bit less weaker because you have to have them 2 steps away. Personally, I think that um, it's just one of those cards that are just going to be only fit for certain deck types. I feel like when everyone would play this card, they would see that it's, well, just a rock. It's not that great.
Yeah.
Definitely useful, but not like format breaking whatsoever. Because honestly, like nothing is worse when you have a Stormy Seas or a Cave In, get rid of all of your cores and mana rocks and your minions, mind you. And if they have a minion that could be on the subsurface and they can pick up those artifacts and bring it to the other side, it's pretty bonkers. You can't really do that with just a rock, and it can only hit one target. So it's kind of a balance for me. I need to see other cards to really see if this is going to be a real playable card or if this is just a meme or a joke.
Yeah, and like the conditions, so I mean, it's kind of like a mid. Would you consider like a mid phase card? Like you can't play it too soon, right? Because you got to have a minion. That minion's got to be carrying a different artifact already, and then you got to play this card. So even though it has a low casting cost,
It can be your avatar. So if they drop a core on their avatar turn one, you can just rock.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You play it on theirs, yeah, to banish their artifact. It's pretty hilarious. So you crush their core and you replace it with this rock. So it's sitting on the shoulders of this thing.
You
It's
see
fun, man.
that
It's a fun card. Yeah,
it's definitely fun, but
it's gonna
like
be
again,
a
I think
super
that there's better
triggering.
cards for sure.
It's gonna trigger people.
Well, it really depends what other artifacts we see in Arthurian Legends, which I think will probably be a pretty heavy artifact set, anyhow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people were really concerned. Oh, this destroys my cores and my stone. But I think if just a rock is something that people include one in a deck, especially with the new 50 card deck, there you go. There's one of your 10 cards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that there are going to be other artifacts you're going to want to hold it for, because that card is just going to be, this is the way I need to get rid of X, whatever that is, whatever terrible new artifact we get. Maybe it's the Holy Grail. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's an opportunity cost because then it's a dead card in your hand or it's a card you're just holding in your hand. There's an opportunity cost to having and playing something else if you're trying to hold out with it. It'll be interesting. Love the artwork. It's really good.
Yeah, I thought that this was a joke when I saw it because I was like, huh, like this can hit Philosopher's Stone. And then I like had to like really ponder for a minute. And I was like, how really devastating is that? Because like again, yeah, sure, you can use common sense. You can even use Highland Princess to search for it, right? Because it's a relic.
Yep, sure can. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you can search it and then you can have a good answer for something that's relevant in that moment.
Yeah.
I think that adds versatility because even if you're going up against something like Battle Mage, if they happen to get lucky enough to put a flaming sword on that Battle Mage really early, things can get out of hand. So being able to search for that as quick as possible is better per se than drawing into your cave in or stormy seas. So there's some balance. You either want to play something that can only hit one target that you can search for, or you would rather risk drawing into something more powerful and later on in the game, like Haven or Stormy Seas. Because man, I'm telling you, if you play like if someone plays a Haven on you when you have like all your cores and if you have like even 2 minions stacked on top of that same site, it's way more effective than just a rock.
You know, it'd be fun. Random thought here. So I have the website organized by artist, right? You think you guys can make a call quickly on what is the best card for each of the artists. We'll go through a few of them, see if we get bored to tears or if it's actually fun. So, what is the best Adam Burke card? He only has 3. Be interesting to see if he's. I don't know if he's going to be in Arthurian Legends. I think we're going to have some artists that are and some that are not. His style is borderline. Like, do you hold out for a darker set with him, or could he do something Arthurian? I don't know.
I mean, just in terms of the cards he has, I mean, Edge of the World has an edge case use, maybe, but
Yeah.
he got. I feel like Kingdom of Agartha was a lost opportunity, because if you had made that card a water site that triggered with 3 water elements, being able to eliminate your opponent's ability to bury stuff as a water player would be incredible. Because then you go on their land and one of their primary removal tools is gone.
Yeah, that honestly, I'm really hoping that they do something like that with where they have cards that are obviously specific towards certain elements. It would be nice to see different variations of those. Like what you said with the Kingdom of Agartha. I think that would be amazing if they did something like that for water sites. Just give like all minions submerge. That would be so good.
Yeah, it's interesting. So they said they realize water's underpowered, and there's going to be new tools that kind of level the playing field for them, or for that element type. So Pollock's got a ton of cards. His style's very diverse, and we already know he's in Arthurian Legends. Actually, there's been a few spoilers of his. So what jumps out from his?
Pollock did Grapple Shot, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yep, that's an easy one.
I mean, that is the card.
Yeah.
I don't know. Of course, he did Earth. Did he do Earthquake too?
Yeah, he did.
I don't know. That's hard.
So Earthquake, rearrange sites within a 2x2 region, carrying along everything of normal size. This card's super confusing to like a noob. Then burrow all minions and artifacts on those sites if able. So you got to rearrange the sites within a 2x2 region. That's wild. Yeah, it's really cool for an Earthquake effect. Carrying along all right, so you just carry along. What is carrying along everything of normal? What's normal size mean?
Everything stays on the sites. So you select something within 2x2 that's usually like just 4 zones. You rearrange them, and anything that's on a non-water site gets burrowed, and all the artifacts get burrowed as well. See, if your minions are on a water site, your opponent can rearrange the water site and they would stay on that site, but they wouldn't be burrowed because they're on a water site.
Okay.
But basically, whatever is on the site stays on that site. So, if you have a boss troll on your dune sea or on your, arid desert, and your opponent moves that arid desert and swaps it with your remote desert, the boss troll would move with it, but then the boss troll is going to be buried anyhow and it's going to die. So,
gotcha. That's pretty sweet. Okay, so
It's
Grapple
such a good
Shot
card.
is an easy call. Modesty. Love Modesty. This is a fun one because he has like some interesting cards with Candlemass. I know there's like a powerful combo with that one. Falconer? I don't know. Are beasts relevant enough? Beasts with airborne, no less.
you
He's
take
got
that.
He's got basic sights. Spear. What's the deal with Spear? Is Spear like what do you guys think of that? Is it reasonably powered, underpowered?
The problem is you're
I
giving
think
it.
it's sorry, I was gonna say I think it's mid. Like it's not anything like groundbreaking, but it's definitely useful.
So you throw the spear at any minion anywhere. It teleports to that minion's location. So I know there was some confusion like over this one. Does the minion teleport with the spear? The minion that threw it?
No.
Just the spear goes there, and then it gets dropped, and your opponent can pick it up and use it, right?
Which is why when you use it, you'd want to have a teleport effect or have another minion nearby who could run over and snag it. But your opponent can very easily turn it against you. So that's what makes it a little scary.
But it kills the minion it hits, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty powerful in that regard. Kills anything anywhere on the board, essentially. Anything it hits.
It also, if you read it correctly, it says bearer has this ability. So I believe it grants the kill to whatever minion or unit is on it. So,
Hmm.
for example, if you had Grim Reaper with this, that's the only
Right.
time I really see this combo being played, is if they play it on something with lethal and they use it to kill something. Um, sure, I mean, of course, the Spirit Destiny does just kill it by default, but with Grim Reaper specifically, it gets rid of all copies because it got the kill. It's pretty interesting.
All copies that are in play.
Yeah, you
No.
get to look at your opponent's hand and all cards in their deck and their cemetery, and you exile all copies of that minion that Grim
Holy
Reaper
shit.
killed.
So
Very
you
broken.
so you get to look through their deck because you don't take their word for it, right? You got to prove it. So you look at all their entire deck
Yep,
and their hand. That is pretty
yep.
sick. Yeah, I love that.
It's very broken because you can look at all the cards in their hand. You can
Yeah,
analyze their next moves. If you look
right.
at their deck, you can analyze what strategy they're playing. And even better, let's say you're going up against something like Death Speaker, which has the ability to resurrect minions from the cemetery. Since they're banished, Death Speaker won't have access to them again with its ability. So there's a lot of benefits to doing that.
So that's effect of Reaper specifically. Whenever Grim Reaper kills a minion, banish that minion and all copies. Okay. Search its owner's cemetery, hand, and spellbook and banish any copies. Yeah, that's an awesome effect. It's pretty cheap to play too, but it's a unique, right? So it's hard to kind of get
Well,
into play.
it's one power. So technically, you can
Yeah.
only once, but with the
Hmm.
spear or a rolling boulder,
Because it gives it that
Rolling
range.
Boulder, that's
Yeah.
good too.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Yeah.
Even grapple shot. We were just seeing that a second ago. Because since it gets to strike first, you don't have to worry about it taking damage, which also gets me interested in the new ability Lance, because Lance drops a little artifact where you can strike first with it for one time. So you can get the Lance, drop it, have Grim Reaper pick up the Lance, and oh man, you're gonna have a fun time. It's so neat.
yeah, cascading lances. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Mike, I remember when you actually like you showed Grim Reaper before Alpha, and I
Yeah.
thought it was like a completely fake card. I was just like, "What is this?" And you were like, "Oh, it's like one of the test play cards."
Yeah. Let's
And
see
then
if
I
we
just
can find it.
randomly pulled into my Alpha box, and I was like, "Oh, this is too good to be true. This is such a sweet moment."
Yeah, I remember because like they guided. This is it. Yeah, here's the sample card version. That's probably the version you're talking about. Summon this Reaper. So it had Voidwalk and
Yeah.
Immortal, which doesn't exist anymore. Summon. This sold for $2,550. That was oh, this was a recent auction. That's right. The first time
Oh,
I actually
nice.
pulled this in one of my sample pack breaks, and then I auctioned this. I guess like just a few weeks ago it was. So it has Immortal, which is now gone. Summon this Reaper to a random location determined by rolling a d20. When it shares a location with another minion, kill that minion, then place this Reaper in your discard pile. Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty wild effect.
Interesting. Immortal. I hope we never see that on a like approved sorcery card. That just seems too strong.
Well,
What
it depends.
was.
If
Yeah.
you can banish it, then that'd be potentially okay if we get more banish effects.
Hmm. Good point.
What
Like
Good
was.
point.
What am I doing
Freud,
here?
but it could be banished. I could live with that.
Yeah, I can agree to that. I would live with that too.
So the Excalibur, that would have been an opportunity to reinvoke the Immortal, but they just used immune to damage. So I was wondering if they did they actually use that term for that card, but I guess not. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, I had high hopes for Excalibur, but I don't know. It's gonna be very interesting if there aren't that many like minions with multicolor. I think we've only seen one that has every element, and that was that Queen card,
Yeah,
right?
Guinevere. Guinevere, yeah. But Arthur
Yeah,
will have it. And then, of course, the caravan. So,
right. Yeah, I think that would have been a interesting archetype to see, but I guess that's something that'll only improve over time.
Yeah, well, the problem is it's unique, so I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, the immune to damage is nice, but I mean, there's so much removal in the game. Immunity to damage is good, but we don't see a lot of Hydras seeing a lot of play, and that's immune to non-lethal damage. So, I just don't know if being immune to damage is going to be good enough to make Excalibur see a lot of play, because you can just bury it, drown it, whatever.
Good point. I didn't think about that actually. It lets you survive questing beasts is lethal, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah,
I was actually shocked when they put lethal on a 5 powered minion. That's pretty absurd.
I think it's funny. It has stealth.
Oh man, yeah, it's so good. It's such a cool card.
Yeah, Sudlow gets some. He gives Sudlow a lot of good cards, man. Did you guys see the full art on this one with the Easter egg?
Mm-mm.
I posted it
Actually, yeah, I know what you're
in the
talking
group.
about. And I thought that was going to be the original art for it, but perhaps there's going to be a curio art for it.
Now this is the artwork. So under the text box, you have this knight
Ah,
hiding out under the rock.
that's very cool. That's
So we'll
like the
see that.
boss troll. That's why I love boss troll. It's got that little person.
Yeah, people love Bostrel. It's amazing.
Oh, I thought you were talking about they actually released a few months ago, like they were talking about it on their website where they were talking about the Arthurian Legends bestiary or whatever. And they had a clear image of something that literally looked like the questing beast, but it looks
Oh,
a little different from this. So that's I was wondering maybe there's probably going to be curios of like original arts of it, maybe
Well, that would make sense, right? The questing beast, it's hard to find. Make a really cute, cool curio.
for sure.
yeah. That what the company posted that,
Yeah,
or
it
do you
was
see
like
that?
I couldn't remember if it was on their main website, but I remembered I saw it in the community. Like it was Arthurian Legends Bestiary, and
Oh,
I
are
remember
you sure
me
that
and my friend
wasn't?
were talking about it because of assorted animals being like a big thing.
I'm wondering if that was something I posted. I found like an article that had all the beasts from Arthurian lore, and I was just speculating that this is it. Yeah, Arthurian bestiary. I posted it
Oh,
a while back. So this wasn't
yeah,
anything
that was
official.
it.
This was where was the yeah? So I found this website. This is kind of cool actually. So the Arthurian bestiary. These are all the potential beasts that kind of exist at the time of King Arthur lore, and some of the various stories. And somewhere in here, I don't know why it's not coming up. There's like a list of all the different beast types. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so questing beast is on here. I thought maybe they called it something different. This is like oh, maybe it's on the next page. Let me check this out. Getting spammed with all these pop-up ads. Here we go. Questing beast. The chimeric creature pursued by Pelennor with the head of a snake, the body of a leopard, the back of a lion, and the feet of a hart. Hart. Yeah, so there's all these there's some interesting names that are I mean, obviously questing beast is kind of like a throwback to magic. Makes you wonder what others fit that description. That's what I was trying to speculate on. A Gorlagon.
Like this whole time, I thought that was like an official artwork.
Oh,
Had me going.
the Wolf of
Um,
Arthur. Oh, you're talking about the image from the actual post, this thing?
yeah, I thought that
Yeah.
was like an actual like sneak peek of the whole thing.
Oh, I got
Got
you.
me.
Yeah. Now you got to read the post, man. Yeah, I said the artistic possibilities in Arthurian legends span far beyond knights, castles, and weapons. The bestiary holds amazing potential. Yeah, I was just speculating that like, could we have a Demogorgon, a questing beast, which turned out to be true, or the Gorlagon? I don't know what a Gorlagon is. Let's see if we could find a description of that. That sounds cool. It's alphabetical. So Gorlagon. Oh, I must have missed it. Maybe it's not. Hang on. Yeah, I skipped right over it. It's the Wolf of Arthur. Once a man ensorcelled. What the hell does that mean? Ensorcelled by his faithless wife.
Yeah,
The
I think that
wolf.
kind of cursed, ensorcelled.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
The Wolf of Arthur. Man, the artistic possibilities of that description sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what's gonna happen, man. Like, I was really excited for dragons. I figured that was like a big theme in Arthurian legends.
Yeah. Let's see if it says any. There's a dragon and the fairy queen. The dragon bested by the Red
Hmm.
Cross Knight and Edmund Spencer's the fairy queen. That's the
Fairy
only.
dragon support? That
Yeah.
would be insane. That would be so crazy.
A fairy queen that synergizes with dragons or controls them somehow. Gives them a power boost. I don't know. Ravens, the bird of Bran. There's a lot of Raven references in Alpha, and then are seen in Arthurian too. The bird of Bran, in whose form Arthur's soul was said to have flown. Oh, okay. So his soul flew in a raven. Yeah, so it's like there's seeds in Alpha with the blood ravens from Mikal Paul, and then in the witch, she has a raven on her shoulder, right?
Yep.
Let's see if I can
Wasn't there
find
like a
that.
curio with like ravens on it too?
Crows. Murder of Crows was one of the curios. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Murder of crows.
yep.
That would be pretty cool to see as a card in the future.
Yeah, used the Curio art version. That would be a interesting reversal. Yeah, so the witch has it on the shoulder here and flying behind her, and then I drew this comparison to the Ring of Morrigan. What do you guys think of this card? So to see the raven here, I didn't notice this the first time I saw this artwork, but there's a raven like on the side of the ring. So I
That's
wonder if there's a
nice.
potential synergy. I expect this is probably in Arthurian.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a good possibility.
Yeah. She also did a necklace too that I discovered in the pre-alpha era that wasn't used. Um, so I'm wondering. I think that, like you said earlier, you're thinking there's gonna be a lot of relics in Arthurian legends. It makes sense. So you could have rings, you could have necklaces, crowns, maybe. I don't
Myrtle
know.
staff. Like, yeah.
I can't wait to see it because there's Crown of the Victor, the infamous Lost at Sea artwork, and then such an awesome artwork too. It's so tragic. But the will there be like a crown, and what will it do? Like what kind of power will it give? Like Excalibur in Arthurian in the Arthurian Legends set. There's got to be, right. It's gonna be sweet.
Yeah. Actually, in one of the Arthurian Legends tales, what gives Arthur his invulnerability is the scabbard. It's not Excalibur itself. So I wasn't, before they did the reveal of Excalibur, I was wondering if somehow combining the scabbard with Excalibur would do something. But since they gave the prevents all damage to Excalibur, I'm assuming that's not going to happen. So,
Yep.
That actually would have been pretty cool. Like if they gave the scabbard the ability to give a bearer like all elements or something to kind of combo with it. That would have
yeah.
been kind of cool.
One thing I got to go back and do. So I have this page called Unconfirmed. So this is all the like full artwork that we've seen that has not been used in the game yet. And it's probably not 100% comprehensive, but it's pretty much a lot of them that I've discovered. But there's also like the cards that have not been used yet. I need to create a page for all that stuff. Sample cards that we've seen, or even like Holy Grail was not a sample card to our knowledge. It's never been discovered. Um, there's a few examples like that, I think,
Yeah.
that were never physically printed.
Yeah. Hunting,
Um,
ball lightning. Those are the two I know off the top of my head.
the Mangas one of
Oh, the
the one,
Lord of Lies.
yeah, Lord of Lies, or no, Lord of Lies. There is a sample card,
Yeah, but
but
that's what
I'm
yeah.
talking about just digital files we've seen that weren't
Oh,
actually printed.
okay.
So there's one. What was the Mangas one? I actually have a spellcraft version of it. True Allegiance, it's called. Let me see if I could find that.
Yeah. I remember that one.
Some I have spellcraft versions of. There was that and the yeah, True Allegiance. See this one?
Yeah.
Elite Aura of Unswerving Fealty. That, I mean, that's got to be in Arthurian, you know. So I don't know. I need a card database of all those that we know of. This is not technically. It's not a sample card. This was like
Yeah.
very early.
If I were you, I would wait until Arthurian Legends is out so you don't have to edit that page.
Well, yeah, I know it's only relevant but that's the point of it. Just like the unconfirmed artwork, like we know it's artwork that was commissioned for sorcery, but it hasn't been used yet. And now some of that, yeah, has now changed. Well, Time Stop we haven't seen yet. The Ring is going to be a great one.
There was a sample card of Time Stop, right?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
Actually, so the this was called Toss when it was commissioned. Now we finally seen this card. So yeah, things are changing fast. Now this one here, I think my speculation on this. So when Vasily posted this, it just said card name TBA. So he didn't even have a name for it. But I'm thinking this was the original Donnybrook Inn. And Eric said, like, no, I need like the inn to be like the big focal point of the card, and he had him redo it, if I had to guess. Because you see it's like too much of the village, right?
Yeah.
In the foreground. I guess with a text box you'd kind of see the inn, but like obviously in his new version it's much more pronounced. But yeah, a lot of interesting history. I don't know. I've never seen like that in other
Arthurian
games.
Legends. Oh, sorry, I was gonna ask, are there like gonna be reprints of Arthurian Legend cards, or like rather, are there gonna be beta cards reprinted into Arthurian Legends?
We don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've said I think it's kind of been hinted that there's like 250 cards, but only 220 are unique new mechanics. So I suppose those other 30 could be maybe, beta reprints, but I don't think there'll be any beta reprints. I just don't think there will be, unless it's maybe the ordinary sites. That would be the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
I
pretty
was trying to
strange
think
thing
of
to
maybe
do.
something that just has an alternate art, like what he was saying with Donnybrook Inn or something. I think that would be interesting, but also I kind of agree. Like, I mean, just for more beta, but don't actually do that. Don't do it. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see what's really going to be in it. Fellas,
What do you guys
it
think
is about that
about?
time for me to get
You got
going,
to bounce.
unfortunately.
One last question. What do
So,
you think about basic sites with new art? Because like Marta Molina did all the rivers, but none of them
Totally.
were used, you know?
Totally.
oh, that would be great. Yeah, if we
Yeah.
can get more rivers and like villages and stuff like that, that would be awesome. I
Yep.
also think it's kind of interesting how we only have four different types of rivers, but three villages, three deserts, and three towers.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a fourth one to improve the consistency of this new rule change. Maybe new
Yep.
artwork. I'm all for it.
Cool. All right, guys. Yeah, we probably should wrap up. We've been going an hour and a half. My throat's hurting from talking so much. But yeah, it was fun. It was something different. I like talking the gameplay. It's like good change up. So maybe we'll do it again once the next gut-wrenching news comes out that ruins everyone's lives.
For
It'll be
sure. It
fun.
was
There's
thank
a
you
plan.
for having us.
Yeah.
Josh, it was awesome meeting you, man. Keep up the good work with your channel.
Yeah.
And yeah, Mike, keep doing you, man. You're doing an awesome job. And I look forward
likewise,
to
dude.
speaking with you guys. Till next time.
All right. All right. Thanks everybody for following along, and we'll see you Sunday. We're gonna do a 2-box alpha break, and I'm gonna showcase some wild new altar concepts that are coming. So Sunday at 11 a.m. and then 2 hours later football. All right, guys. Have a good night. Take care.
Later.
See ya.